Much money do you need to buy a house? Is it just down payment? Is it just closing costs? Have you ever truly thought about what other costs are there when you go to try to buy a house? Whether it's from landscaping to paying off some debt or even doing some repairs around the home. Things like that, you just don't know. So if you ever wonder about different costs about purchasing a home, this is the episode for you. We're going to talk all about the hidden costs, the things that Zillow don't tell you when you're
Mm,
looking at that Zillow calculator to figure out how much money do I really need to purchase a home. So guys, let's dive right in.
let's
When it
go.
comes to cost of purchasing a home, of course, we know there's down payment. Of course, we know there's closing costs. You might have some attorney fees, earnest money, the basic things that they kind of, I call it the textbook script of what's
Right.
needed. But the reality of the fact is once you actually own that house, sometimes a lot of times things come up, especially if you're buying pre-existing or even if you're buying, new construction. There may be some other things that you may have just not thought about. So let's kind of talk about that today. So Wilmot, I know you sold and help, countless amount of clients buy and purchase real estate. Have you
Right.
ran into any crazy things that some of your clients came back to you and say, hey, you ain't tell me about this, Mr. Berry. I didn't know about that. Or how do you
Oh
typically
man.
handle,
Oh
the
I know
unthinkable?
I know I have had my share of calls, and every realtor has had their share of calls. Whether it's, I guess one of the first ones is possibly, repairs, right?
Mhm.
Let's talk about that. When you move into your house, don't get me wrong. Sometimes everything isn't exactly how you want it, right?
Mhm.
So you might want to do some ripping out of the carpet and put some new flooring down, right? And they need, a lot of times my clients would call me and say, "Well, you got anybody for this?" I said, "Yeah, I got somebody." "Hey, when you move into that house, I want to keep it clean. Do you have a cleaning person for that?"
Mhm.
I got people for that as well. I have a person I will call. They'll come in as soon as you move into that house, give you a nice thorough cleaning of that home, and then maintain it. So if you need, let's say, somebody for that, that's another cost. If you're not one of those people that say, "Man, I keep a tidy house all the time," you might need some help. If you got the kids, you're working 9 to 5, and you want someone to come in
Mhm.
maybe once a week or once every other week to kind of keep the house nice and good with that, smelling good with that fabuloso. I don't know if y'all use fabuloso or not. Oh, but I just love when I come in my house sometimes and I smell that, because I know the house has been nice and clean. But I'm not gonna go too far down that road. But yeah, that's just one of those called repairs and maintenance, of the home, that I feel like a lot of people just don't consider when buying their home.
Yeah,
So
that's good stuff. And so,
mhm.
Gavin, for you, I know, like for us on the mortgage side, we don't typically, get a lot of the calls for like the, I call it the vendor list of some, the maintenance
Right.
part of the transaction. But we do tend to get calls after closing, either regarding, something to do with their mortgage payment, or whether it's something to even do with, maybe possibly utilities that he didn't think about and such.
Mhm.
Have you ran into anything crazy of a cost that we like to make sure we warn people of, just in case, they forget?
Well, yeah, nah, and quite honestly, I have ran into just a handful. I probably can count on my fingers. The times where people have reached out to us for those special vendor type things, like, hey,
Mhm.
my water isn't running or something, or I got a leak. I'm just your finance person. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know who your plumber is going to be that needs to come out there. But nevertheless, I think a lot of people run into certain circumstances where they don't take into consideration their like their homeowner insurance and property taxes.
Mhm.
These things are um, can be reevaluated year after year. In some instances, homeowners insurance, depending on the company that you with, sometimes that can change, in the middle of the year. It's not necessarily that it's an annual thing. You may be paying for it annually, and in terms of the premium being paid, but it can fluctuate. In most cases, you'll see increases in regards to property taxes and homeowners insurance, and those things on a typical routine, they typically happen, during the renewal period. So for property taxes, those are going to happen at the end of the year, where you'll see, you know, the adjustment being made. Now your monthly payments higher because the property taxes are higher. As your home appreciates,
Right.
and there's more stuff coming to the area that you're living in, and schools being built. Those things run up property taxes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a good point. Go ahead, Wilmot.
No, no, I was going to just comment off of Gavin. Like, that's one of the things we're going through right now in Orangeburg, because of new schools being built, new developments are coming to the area, new subdivisions. They want to make the roads better. They want to make the schools better. Uh, your millage rate will increase, and that, and your tax rate will increase as your millage increases. So that's something I want people to understand. Like, when your area is developing and more things are coming into the area, more
Mhm.
restaurants, more shopping, more stores, more retail, things of that nature, you will sometimes see an increase in taxes, because of the city trying to pay for all of this stuff so that it could, move efficiently and grow. Hmm.
That's a great point. So what I was going to add to that is when you're really thinking about your budget, when you make the decision to purchase a home outside of just, trying to make sure you keep that mortgage payment low, you want to really take into consideration the homeowner's insurance and the property taxes. Because a lot of
Right.
times what I've even seen, like for us, like we bought new construction back in 2021. And when we purchased our home, because this phase of our neighborhood was still fairly new, our insurance was super cheap and the taxes were too, because they were
Right.
still developing. But then once things settle and they already build out, in that new
Mhm.
community, and like you said, schools come, YMCA comes, they're improving roads, and we notice then our tax bill is inching up, inching up. It starts to increase, and those are not necessarily things that we budgeted for, but it's super important. And because we live, in Somerville, Charleston, South Carolina, a low country coastal city, a lot of people's homeowners insurance have been getting dropped and canceled, because when we
Mm.
have hurricanes or these crazy floods and things like that that hits our area because we're on the coast, that also makes homeowners insurance go up. And so
Right.
those are
Right.
not necessarily things that you think about, but it's something that you should take into consideration based on the location and where you're deciding to purchase. So I think, those two are great. Now let's talk about HOA, right? Some people,
Hmm.
I don't know, and maybe this might not be, I don't know. I don't think there's no question is a silly question. So in more rural areas, like I guess in my opinion, Orangeburg is rural, but I guess in all actuality, it's not that rural. Do they have HOAs in Orangeburg? Are they as common? I know they're very common here, but do y'all have HOA?
Oh yeah, we got some HOAs here in beautiful Orangeburg, South Carolina. We sure do have some HOAs, and so in a lot of our nice subdivisions, you got Ramsgate, you got Edisto Plantation, you got Oakfield, you got the
Okay.
Park at Wilkinson. All these different subdivisions do have HOAs that they enforce, and if you don't mind, I do sometimes think that HOAs get a bad rap,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but I want to inform people HOAs assist in helping your property values stay where they are. Okay. If there's no rules enforced, I know some, I don't want no rules. I want to put my chickens in the back of my house. I want to put a clothesline and everything. I get it. And I totally understand. But when you make your investment in that property and your next door neighbor does something that you don't agree with, that if you had a HOA they couldn't do, guess what? It's going to impact your property. Okay. So
Mhm.
just understand the HOA is there to help maintain the the elegance of the community that you
Mhm.
might be living in, the
True.
standard in your community. So just understand that HOA does have play a big part in helping with your property value. But if that's not what you want, I get it. So I told it, and I say that cautiously because I do know some people, they just are against HOAs.
Right.
So
Yeah. Some people just don't want to be told what they can do with what they own.
for for those of you that might not know, what a HOA is. It stands for Homeowner Association. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Homeowner Association. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then to add to that, as a part of hidden costs or things you may not think of, like this, kind of keep in mind that the HOA amount could potentially change. Typically, they have to vote, and there has to be like a budget and things like that. But once
Right.
again, if you're purchasing in a developing community,
Right.
then chances are that HOA over time may increase, especially if your neighborhood is offering a neighborhood pool or parks and playgrounds, or they have other amenities in your neighborhood that you get to enjoy or that you guys want to have out there. Those HOA fees can. But I would also say, make sure you pay your HOA because I have
Oh yeah.
had clients call because they will foreclose or put a lien on your property if you do not pay
Right.
your HOA fees. So
Yeah.
make sure you do pay them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Know all your rules and regulations.
Yeah. So
I've heard some. Yeah. I've heard
in
some stories.
regards to things that HOAs enforce, let's talk about lawn care and landscaping. Don't
Oh yeah.
these are things that are costly, but you don't necessarily take into consideration, especially living in a community where HOA requires you to have or don't have certain type of landscaping or certain type
Hmm.
of
Mm.
maintenance for your lawn.
Right.
Man, I mean, once a certain time of the season of the year starts, your grass has to be mowed every 2 weeks. Depending on how the HOA standards are,
Right.
or
Right.
it can't exceed a certain height. It can't
Right.
look a certain way. You can't have certain weeds growing up in your grass. So you
Mm.
have to pay, or you have to have a green thumb yourself to be able to know how to make your
Mm-hmm.
landscape beautiful. And then,
Right.
I don't know the last time y'all been in Lowe's, Home Depot, but plants and flowers and mulch,
Expensive.
man, it ain't cheap, brother. It ain't
Oh,
cheap.
it's not. It's definitely not cheap.
And and these things, they look good momentarily. It depends on what you buy, but you get those annuals or whatever things that only come around for just a peak of the season and then they go away. Guess what? If it look bad in that next season, you got to do
Right.
something that you got to replace it. You got to put something else in
Absolutely.
there. So those are hidden
Absolutely.
costs that people don't take in consideration. That you got to keep up the appearance and the landscaping and lawn care of your home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another thing I was thinking about as we work our way, down the list that we have is appliance replacement. Okay.
Mhm.
This is something that I do get calls about. It's like, well, my my HVAC unit went out. So
Mm,
okay. I got a guy. I got a guy. Um, and sometimes like when you go through the home buying process, we are able to work out what we call a home warranty with the house. Let's just say the unit has some age on it, right? And I will advise them like, hey man, it might be smart if we got a home warranty with this deal as well, just in case that unit goes out. I've had that situation happen to me. Bought my
Mhm.
house, I think in like August. It got us through the fall and the winter, and summer came around. That heat hit, and guess what? That
Mm.
unit went out, and that unit might have been 12 years, 14 years old. Had somebody come out, had a warranty. They came out, they fixed it, they repaired it, pretty much put a band-aid on it. Okay. And it got us through another season. So, appliance replacement, refrigerators, stoves, things like that, guys. Those are some costs that you just need to have some funds in the bank for a rainy day. Okay.
Mhm.
Especially if the appliances aren't brand new. Okay.
Yeah,
mhm.
that's really, really good advice.
Mhm.
Moving right along is utilities. So I'm pretty sure like um, when the HVAC system, went out for you or your client and things like that, sometime when it's trying to run harder, what other things it probably can hike up is your electricity bill, right?
Mhm.
If you don't have solar panels and things like that on your home to help control your electricity,
Right.
sometime or depending on how big, of a family you have and how much usage you guys use when it comes to water and electricity use and things like that, making sure, especially if you're, even you used to live in an apartment where the square footage is smaller and you done bought a bigger size
Right.
house that you're,
Right.
air conditioning conditioning and running things off of, whether it's cable, all kinds of stuff. Just
Right.
thinking about those costs as well. I call it your cost of true living, right? Your lifestyle, and what that really is going to cost you when it's time to, purchase a home, and not just thinking about, okay, yeah, I want my mortgage payment to be $1,700, $1,800, but also thinking about, I call it your lifestyle payments, right? Like the other things that you spend that you may not necessarily think about all the time.
Right. Right.
Yeah, how
So
those things, they differ, depending on your stage of life. Like you said, going from a 1,000 square foot apartment to buying a 1,800, 2,000 square foot home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's different in regards to how, and then sometimes you have houses with split level air conditioning systems to where
Yeah.
it helps you balance and be more efficient in terms of, but then you have units that whole house units where I don't want to be cold upstairs or cold downstairs, and you don't have and it has to cool the whole house to get the whole house that temperature, as
right.
opposed to just a section of the house. So
Right.
that can run your AC, that can run your electric bill up.
Absolutely. When we were doing this topic, guys, one of the scriptures that came to mind was Luke 14:28. And it says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? Okay.
Mm.
And I think what it's saying is, man, we gotta count these costs that if we're considering to purchase a home. All right. If we're considering whatever we are thinking about doing, we need to count those costs.
Mhm.
Okay. And so I'm glad we're going over this, because it's not just a mortgage and utilities that come with purchasing a home. Guys,
Mhm.
there's going to be some things that come up and you need to be prepared for. So it's good to make sure you got some money saved up, put away for a rainy
Right.
day. And also, guess what? You do got insurance. You do got a home warranty. Like I tell my clients, home warranty is for when it wears out. And home insurance is when something suddenly, directly, or accidentally happens to it. Okay. That's how you look at when you utilize each one of those. DSA, direct, sudden, or accidental damage, is your insurance company. However, if it's something that wears out, you call your home warranty company. All right.
Mhm. It's good
That's
advice.
good stuff. You dropping the nuggets. You dropping the nuggets today. Well, guys, that's our time. But like always, the purpose of us doing Teach Me Tuesday every week is so that we can give you guys, some knowledge and things like that in this space of home ownership beyond just the typical transaction. So we definitely hope that you guys found this information to be useful, and informative. And like always, you can catch us same time-ish next week. We usually
Let's
try to do
go.
this around 12-ish is what we say. Next week, Tuesday, we're looking forward to answering any questions that you guys have related to all things mortgage and real estate. So we see you guys next week.
See y'all then.